Good morning everyone. This is Abhinaya from the Department of CSE. So today we are going to discuss about cookies in servlet. So first of all, before getting into the topic, we just want to know what is a cookie, why we are learning this topic, right? So as we all discussed, as we all know, servlet is nothing but it is a part of your server. A client sends a request to your server. Server in backend processes the request through servlet. So we have already discussed about session. So what is a session? So once a client initiates a request and for example a client logins into the application. From login to your logout time, what are all the things you are doing? This particular time duration is called as session. Server, it needs of the history, its own history. Server, it needs its own history of what has happened in it, right? So we are going for session tracking. So session tracking, before getting into the topic, that is what is cookies, we just want to know about session tracking. So session tracking is nothing but what are all the transactions happened between your client and server is called as session tracking. So we can there are three techniques for handling your session or tracking your session. First one is using session ID, second one is cookies, and third one is URL rewriting. So today we are going to discuss about cookies. So cookies are nothing but it completely relies on your client side. That is, cookies are small information about the transaction which relies on your web browser. This is called as cookies. So cookies are small pieces of data stored on your web browser which can be used by the server to track its history. So here is the representation of your cookies. So initially, this is your client. The client usually sends a request to the server, right? So how it sends a request? Through your web browser, a client sends a request to your server. So once a server receives its first request, what it does is it creates a response along with some particular ID, and that particular ID is called as cookie. So initially, a client sends a request to your server through a web browser. So once the request is received by the server processes it and sends back a response to your client. So along with your response, it will send a session ID. So it will send a ID for that particular request. That particular ID is called as your cookies. So client receives a response along with a cookie. So this particular cookie should be stored in your web browser. So as I already told you, cookies are nothing but information stored on your web browser. So cookies entirely rely on your client side. So who creates cookies? Server is responsible for creating a cookie, but where it will rely? It will rely on your web browser. So once the client receives its cookie, what it does is it has to do multiple requests, right? For example, I want to enter into a banking application. I will log in, right? So once I log in, a request is sent to my server. So once the server responds with the cookies, what are all the other transactions it should do? Once I log in into the banking application, I have to transfer money through RTGS, or I have to check balance. These are all the things. These are all the multiple requests I'm going to send to my server. So for my first request itself, I'll receive my cookie. So for my upcoming request, what I have to do is I have to send the request along with the old cookie. So when I send my request with the old cookie generated by the server, it is very easy for the server to fetch based on the cookie ID. It will fetch and track the old records. So this is the entire thing which happens inside your cookies. So very simple. A client generally sends a request to your server. Server is the one who's responsible for sending back the response along with the cookie. So for the upcoming request from the client has to send the request to your server along with the cookie, so that based on the cookie, it is very easy for your server to identify what kind of information it has to process and from where the request has arrived. So this is your basic structure of your cookie. So why are we using cookies? So as I already told you, it is a technique, it is one of the technique of your session tracking. So next one is personalization. And last one is state maintenance. So what is personalization? Personalization is nothing but customizing the web content based on user preferences. So example for personalization is if once you enter username and password for login site, it will ask you, right, whether I have to remember your password or remember your credentials. These are all the personalization things. So showing recently viewed items, these are all the things for personalization. Next one is state maintenance. State maintenance is nothing but, for example, if the browser wants to keep you logged in, it will ask, right, whether you want to log in, whether you want to log in or not, right? So these are all the things we are going for cookies. Next one, types of cookies. So we are having two types here. First one is session cookies. Second one is persistent cookies. So as I already told you, cookies are temporary. So cookies are entirely rely on your web browser. So session cookies is nothing but once you close the browser, the data will be deleted. That is your session cookies. Persistent cookies is nothing but for some time, even though if you close your browser, there is a specified duration of time in which your cookies are saved. This is called your persistent cookies. Next is your flow of cookie management. So a client sends a request, server creates a cookie along with the response, and server sends the cookie to your client. So for your upcoming client request, we have to include that particular cookie. So in servlet, how we are going to use cookies? So it is mandatory to import this particular package into our program. If I want to use cookie in my servlet program, this particular package is very important. javax.servlet.http.cookie. So there are three steps here. If I want to use my cookie in my servlet, I want to follow these three steps. First one is I have to set up a cookie. Second one is reading a cookie, and third one is deleting a cookie. So when user logs in, the servlet creates a cookie and sends it to the client. Why I'm saying here servlet is generating? Because the server is responsible for generating a cookie, but server sends the request to your servlet. So servlet is one of the feature of your server. So it is responsible for generating the cookie. Now we'll discuss this thing with an example code. So I'm using servlet here. Inside my servlet, I want to use cookies, right? This is my main objective. I'm going to use cookies inside my servlet. So basic packages of servlets are given here. If I want to use servlet exceptions, servlet methods and classes, I need to import all these kind of packages. Next one, I'm creating a class called setCookieServlet, which extends HTTP servlet. Protected void doGet. This particular method is responsible for handling my exceptions for using my HTTP request and response. Next one is I'm creating a cookie. So user cookie equals new cookie of username comma John. So once I want to create a cookie, I have to give cookie name and cookie value here. So my cookie name is username and cookie date value is John. And I want to set the duration of my cookie. This line is very mandatory. So this is the name of my cookie, that is user cookie dot set maximum age, which is I'm setting the duration of how long should my cookie should be alive. This is the duration, that is 1 day. Next one is response dot add cookie of user cookie. I'm creating a cookie with username and value. I'm setting the duration of my cookie, and I'm sending this particular cookie to the web browser. We all know that cookies reside on your web browser. So I'm just sending this particular cookie, created cookie, to my web browser. Next is reading a cookie from the client. So same thing here. Look at this code. Read cookies. So here cookies equals request dot get cookies. So cookie is a array of objects here. I'm just creating an array of objects. Cookies equals request dot get cookies. Using get cookies method, I can able to fetch the details of the cookies that we have already created. So I'm here checking a condition, checking for if condition. If cookies is not null, I have to fetch, right? From the array of objects, or sorry, array of cookies, I have to fetch. Here I'm using enhanced for loop. So what is enhanced for loop? So what is the basic syntax of your for loop here? For, initialization, condition checking, and increment decrement. This is the basic syntax of my for loop, right? So here the same thing, what I'm using is enhanced for loop. For this is my data type, cookie is my variable, equals cookies. This is my collection. So the same thing as your normal enhanced for loop and for loop, the same thing happens here. In a collection or in an array of cookies, I'm just fetching each index values. So I'm just fetching the cookie dot get name and get value. So what is in what name you have created a cookies? You have created a cookies and a name called username, and the value is John, right? So that particular details is fetched. Else, if it checks for cookie information, if it is available, this particular thing is displayed. If no cookies is present, then no cookies found will be my output. At the last, I have to delete a cookie. So once my thing is over, once my process is over, I want to delete a cookie, right? So how do you delete a cookie? Here, cookie, delete cookie equals new cookie of username. So what is this username? Once I have created a cookie with a cookie name called username. So that particular, the same name have to be given here. So that created cookie is deleted here. Now delete cookie dot set maximum age of 0. So for what we are using set maximum age while creating? While creating a cookie, I have to set a duration for how long should my cookie should be alive, right? So same thing here. I want to delete it immediately. So what I'm doing? Delete cookie dot set maximum age of 0. That is, we are just setting the expiration to 0. Immediately my cookie should be deleted. So response dot add cookie of delete cookie. This particular thing is sent to my web browser. So once it is sent to my web browser, the details of the cookies which are stored on your web browser is automatically deleted once this particular response is received. So this is all about my cookies. Next one is advantages of cookies. So as we have already discussed, cookies are small pieces of information which is reside on your client side, that is web browser. So it is very lightweight. Maximum size is 4 KB. So it is easy to use. And disadvantages is, for security concern, it can be, we all have heard about hijacking, right? So there is a concept called cookie hijacking, using which it can be easily tampered. These are all the advantages and disadvantages of cookies. So thank you.